Defensive contributions, or DEFCON data, has divided opinion in the FPL community. Today, I'm going to give you all of the stats, all of the data for defenders DEFCON for each of the different price points, and for midfielders for each of the different price points. G'day guys, and welcome back to your English Aussie. Strap on your boots and let's dive straight into the video. So, first off, we have got the defenders from 4 to 4.4 million. Looking at this table, you can see we have got a real array of data, all pulled directly from the FPL website through the FPL API, which I linked directly into my Excel spreadsheets to be able to produce this data for you guys. You can see here we've got the top 20 defenders sorted by points for the 4 to 4.4 million category. On the right, you can see expected goal involvements per 90, value per minute, defensive contributions per 90 minutes, baseline BPS, and the bonus points that defenders have racked up so far this season over the first 7 game weeks. So let's dive right into the data here and look at these players that we've highlighted with the best defensive contribution data per 90. Right at the top of that list is Mukiele of Sunderland, having started in 5 games, played 90 minutes in all of those 5 games, 2 clean sheets for Sunderland, and has a DEFCON per 90 of 12.6. By far the best on this list. And for me, if you are looking at defensive contribution data and who you'd like to get into your team for this upcoming run of fixtures, perhaps you're on a game week 8 wildcard, I think Mukiele of Sunderland looks like your #1 option at 4 million. Better DEFCON than Alderette, better DEFCON than the Burnley defenders and also the Leeds defenders. And with Sunderland looking like they have been a quite rigid and solid defense so far this season, it could be a really nice pick, especially with a reasonable fixture run over the next 5 weeks where they have Wolves and Everton along with Fulham, who have been struggling offensively so far this season. Next up on the list for me, a little bit of a surprise in here, is Mavropanos of West Ham. Now, obviously, West Ham started the season really poorly under Graham Potter. Now that Nuno has come into West Ham, he is well known for being defensively solid, as he was with Nottingham Forest last year, leading them to have one of the best defences in the Premier League last year. If Mavropanos can continue to pick up 11 defensive contributions per 90, starting in that back four for West Ham, he could be a really nice pickup if their form defensively improves over the next few weeks. With Brentford and Leeds followed by Newcastle and then Burnley, that could be a really nice next 4 fixtures if you want somebody that you want to rotate into your team and take a little bit of a punt on a West Ham asset. Only 1 clean sheet so far this season though, and they haven't looked fantastic so far. It is a little bit of a punt, hoping that Nuno can turn things around for them, but the defensive contribution data is certainly there. The next 2 that have reasonable defensive contribution data are Ekdal of Burnley and Bueno of Wolves, Santiago Bueno of Wolves, that is, with 10.15 and 10.36 defensive contributions per 90. Now, I really wouldn't be looking at anybody in this price range that has under a 10 defensive contribution per 90, as if they're over 10, it's more likely that they're going to be picking it up in quite a few game weeks. As soon as you drop to under 10, that means they're averaging less than 10. So if they have a big game week, for example, that again skews the average upwardly, and you'd expect them to actually not hit DEFCON in most of those weeks. So those players that have 11 plus DEFCON, now those are the sort of players that you want to be looking at that you think potentially can do this on a consistent basis. Anywhere between 10 and 11 is good, especially if they're picking up defensive contributions around 11, 12 every week, with maybe one or 2 poor weeks mixed in there. Those are the sort of players that I would be looking at, especially in this price point range. So for me, for the defensive contribution data in the 4 to 4.4 million defender bracket, these are the only 4 defenders that I would be looking at. Moving on to the mid-price defenders, and just a quick shout out, if you do enjoy this data, if you do enjoy this video, please give us a like on the video, a subscribe down below to the channel. It does really help small content creators like me grow the channel, and I would really appreciate that. So, into the mid-price midfielders, and that is 4.5 to 5.4 million midfielders. We do have quite a lot of defenders in here with really excellent DEFCON data, and leading the way by a long way is Senesi of Bournemouth, the top scoring defender so far this season, alongside Gueye of Crystal Palace. He has a defensive contributions per 90 data of 12.84 per game. He's picked up defensive contributions in 6 of his 7 Premier League games so far, and probably would have picked it up last week against Fulham if he hadn't have been substituting, as Bournemouth were chasing some goals to come back into the game at 1-0 down. I think Senesi's a really fantastic pick at 4.9 million, 3 clean sheets so far this season for Bournemouth. He does also have an expected goal involvement of 0.18, and really is exceptional value at that 4.9 million. I think a really fantastic pick, and the way Bournemouth play their football, I do expect him to continue to pick up those defensive contributions. Given they're such a high transition-based team, they obviously have lots of attacks because they press so high, but they do also give away the ball as they play with such a fast pace on the counter as well. So there are a lot of attacks for both teams in those games, which does lead to Bournemouth having more defensive actions to do, and therefore more defensive contributions that come about from that. Next up on this list, the next highest is Anderson of Fulham at 4.5 million. He has a defensive contribution per 90 of 11.57. Although Fulham haven't quite clicked defensively and only 1 clean sheet so far this season, after game week 8 and game week 9 against Arsenal and Newcastle, their fixture run does turn a little bit nicer from game week 10. Anderson could be someone that you look to have in your team as a little bit of a rotation defender that will often pick up those DEFCON points. I think he is a really fantastic option for DEFCON. However, due to the lack of clean sheets from Fulham so far, that has been a problem. Potentially from game week 10, he is definitely someone to look at in your team if Fulham can start to then pick up some of those clean sheets against some of the easier opposition. Those are the 2 that have the largest defensive contribution so far this season. Some other players that you could also consider from some of these other teams, you do have both Lacroix and Richards from Crystal Palace. Richards at 10.43 and Lacroix at 10.29. Richard, however, with the expected goal involvements of 0.14 to Lacroix's 0.06, perhaps puts him as a slightly better option. He also does have baseline BPS of 13.43 to Lacroix's 12.14. That, to me, does lead me to believe that when they do pick up those bonus points, it is going to be more likely that Richards picks them up than Lacroix. I know so far this season Lacroix's got 2 and Richards has so far got 0, but this was due to Lacroix picking up that assist for Palace as well. If they are to keep a clean sheet and both of them have competition for bonus, it does look like Richards would be more likely to pick up bonus points than Lacroix. And at 4.5 million, in comparison to the 5.1 at Maxime Lacroix, I think Richards is the nicer pick for Crystal Palace at 4.5 million. Obviously, you've got Gueye up there at 4.8, but a lot of his points have come from the 1 goal and 2 assists for Palace, which I don't expect to continue to occur. I have included Chalobah here with a slightly lower one at 9.75, just because he was very close to that 10 threshold, and I also think he's fantastic for goals from the corners from Chelsea. 2 goals, 1 assist already so far this season. He does get himself into some nice positions and is a target man off those corners. There aren't too many players that are out there that are able to do both at the moment. So I think he is a really nice pick if you're looking for someone who sort of hedges from both sides a little bit. Outside of that, you've got Keane of Everton. However, once Branthwaite comes back for them, does he manage to keep his place in the Everton side? I'm not so sure. Therefore, I probably wouldn't be bringing him in at this stage. And finally, you've got Botman of Newcastle. Newcastle, who switch between a back four and a back three. Botman looks like he's playing at that centre-back role with Milik Thiaw at the moment, with Dan Burn having moved into the left-back role with Tino Livramento out at the moment. Does Lewis Hall find his way into that team? How do Newcastle rotate their centre-backs? That is something to think about going forwards. And for me, if you are to go for a Newcastle centre-back, it probably is going to be Botman at this stage. However, that is a little bit of a risk and something to consider going forwards. So, on to the more expensive defenders, and the main guys in this section are Tarkowski of Everton at 11.29 and Virgil van Dijk of Liverpool also at 11.29. Now, both of these guys obviously fantastic for defensive contributions. Liverpool also one of the better defences in the Premier League. I know only 2 clean sheets so far this season, but definitely a defence that we do expect as the season goes on to continue to be good. And the fixtures really do pick up from around game week 12. I think Liverpool's fixtures, even up to, until then, are relatively good, even from a defensive perspective. And I do expect them to start to pick up more clean sheets as we go forwards. One thing that I have to say about the Liverpool defence that I do want you to consider, and a reason that Konate is highlighted here at 8.65 defensive contributions per 90, is that over the last 2 to 3 game weeks, we have actually seen Konate outscore Virgil van Dijk for defensive contributions, which definitely was not the case over the first 4 to maybe 5 game weeks of the season. And that is because opposition attackers have been pinning themselves to Konate, as he has had a few individual errors that he's been involved in for Liverpool. That has led to him being involved in more defensive actions, as Virgil van Dijk has been the sort of free man and free defender for Liverpool, covering in behind, sweeping up, clearing up issues, whereas Konate has had those individual one-on-one battles where he's able to pick up the clearances, the tackles, etc. I would actually expect this to continue for Liverpool going forwards into the season, and I think you will see Konate's defensive contributions start to increase a little bit and potentially Virgil's start to decrease a little bit, and I actually think that potentially Konate could be the better option. I also do see off corners often Van Dijk actually screening for Konate in the Premier League, and he probably should have scored a couple of goals so far this season for Liverpool from those set pieces. The other two to talk about here are Gabriel of Arsenal at 9.43. He is definitely the best Arsenal defender for defensive contributions. Saliba is there at 8.8 and Jurrien Timber at 7.7, with Calafiori far below at 4.98. Now, we did see a little bit of a shift from that Arsenal defence in the most recent week. Calafiori moved when they were in attack into sort of a defensive central midfield role to just overrun that midfield, allow Declan Rice to push a little bit further forwards for Arsenal. So he does maybe have a little bit of a nicer attacking role. Jurrien Timber, I think, is fantastic from an attacking perspective for them. But if we are looking purely at DEFCON, I do think Gabriel is the best option for that Arsenal defence, especially at 9.43. He also has the best baseline bonus baseline BPS at 15.57. So if there are no additional goals or additional assists for those defenders from Arsenal, he is the most likely to be picking up the bonus points for those Arsenal defenders. Finally, I have just highlighted Ryan Aït-Nouri. 10.25 was something quite interesting. Once he does come back for Manchester City, he's definitely someone to keep an eye out on the future, whether he can keep up those nice defensive contributions along with being an attacking threat for Manchester City in that left wing back role. those are the defenders. If you have enjoyed this so far, please remember to smash that like button, subscribe down below to the channel, and we will be moving on to the midfielders. Less than 5.4 million, so anyone 4.5 and above. And there are really three standouts here, which are Cullen of Burnley up at 13.12. Now, remember that you need to hit 12 defensive contributions as a midfielder to get those additional 2 points for DEFCON, whereas for a defender, you do only need to hit 10 defensive contributions to pick up those additional 2 points. So Cullen at 13.12 is really nice. Been picking up defensive contributions consistently for Burnley. The 1 goal and 1 assist was in the same game for them, but they do have a really nice fixture run over the next 5 games. Let's keep an eye out for him, whether he is still able to pick up these defensive contributions in some of the better games for Burnley as we go forwards, and whether he's able to get involved in more expected goal involvements per 90 as we go on throughout the season. But Cullen's been great, started 7 games so far for Burnley, and has a really nice 13.12 DC per 90. The other 2 to consider here are Xhaka of Sunderland and James Garner of Everton. Xhaka at 12.71 defensive contributions per 90 and Garner at 11.71. I think Xhaka's obviously a lot more interesting at 12.71. As I mentioned, for defenders, being above the threshold of the 12 for midfielders is just as important for those midfielders. It means that they're going to pick it up on a far more consistent basis than those that are actually averaging less than the 12, which means that on average, they're not going to be hitting it in most game weeks, and they might have one where they have a really good game week, which pushes their average up even more. So I would be looking maybe at a Granit Xhaka or a Josh Cullen at Burnley if you are looking for one of those really cut price midfielders that are able to pick up the defensive contributions on a consistent basis. Xhaka also with 3 assists so far from Sunderland, a real important player in their team. He has played every minute of every game so far for Sunderland this season, so he's a 90-minute man on top of that, whereas as you can see from Josh Cullen, he's actually only played 590 minutes even with the 7 starts, so he hasn't been playing the full 90 in every match, which is something to bear in mind, and one of the other reasons why his defensive contributions per 90 is a little bit higher is the minutes played so far. So I do think on this list, Granit Xhaka is my number 1 pick, and is the person that I would be looking at if you are looking for a really cut price midfielder, less than 5.4 million, that picks up really nice defensive contributions. Moving on to the mid-price midfielders, and there are obviously a couple of big standouts here. That is Caicedo of Chelsea. He's played every minute for Chelsea so far this season, 630 minutes, the best defensive contributions per 90 at 13.71, picking up those DEFCONs in almost every game. 3 goals so far for Caicedo this season as well. He's been really unbelievable for them, and actually somebody that I would be looking to get in my team if I was on a game week 8 wildcard this week. I think at 5.7 million, he's just such brilliant value for money. You can see his value there at 7.89, his value per minute at 12.53. All of these just leading to show what a brilliant pick he has been so far this season. Elliot Anderson down there at the bottom at 12.71 has been really unlucky to miss out on DEFCON in plenty of matches so far. With this change up with Ange coming in at Nottingham Forest, will they be able to score more goals? Are they going to be a more offensive side? Definitely something to keep an eye on. But between the two, Caicedo is definitely the one that I'd be looking to go for at this stage in time. Another interesting one on this list is Dominic Szoboszlai of Liverpool. Now, note that he has often been playing in that right-back role for Liverpool so far this season, so potentially this is why his defensive contributions per 90 are a little bit elevated. However, definitely someone to keep an eye out if you do have space for another Liverpool slot in your team as we continue throughout the season. No other real good stats here for defensive contributions. These are the only 3 guys that I'd be looking at. My number 1 pick here definitely would be Moises Caicedo. Moving on to the expensive midfielders, and really here you're not seeing a lot of players that are going to be hitting that 12 defensive contribution mark very often for midfielders. Bruno Fernandes, the pick of the bunch at 10.64. I think we'd be having very different conversations about Bruno if he had scored those 2 penalties so far this season. Probably would have another 16 or so points with bonus, and would be up there as the second highest scoring midfielder. Given that he hasn't, you can see he's obviously dropped down the threshold. The penalties are also why his expected goal involvements per 90 are so high. Antoine Semenyo is just dominating that midfield so far. 66 points, the second highest scorer after Erling Haaland so far in FPL this season. Defensive contributions of 8.29 as well. The fourth best here in all of these expensive midfielders. The fact that he has taken some penalties with Kluivert off the pitch, he's taken some free kicks, he's scored 6 goals, 3 assists, missed some chances as well, and has the ability to pick up defensive contributions on the very odd occasion. He's just a must-have in any FPL side so far this year. And I thought a really interesting one here was Phil Foden, who was 9.46 for defensive contributions per 90, had a really good baseline BPS at 13.2, and if he does find his shooting boots and find a little bit of form, he's going to pick up some big points hauls for Manchester City. So definitely one that if you're looking to take a punt on somebody and you fancy the Manchester City fixture swing from game week 13 onwards, I think Phil Foden's definitely someone that you can keep an eye on as we go forwards throughout this season. That's all the data I've got from you for the defenders and the midfielders. I really hope this was helpful to all of you guys. Please remember, if you enjoyed this, to give it a like, subscribe down below to the channel. It really does help me continue to produce this good content for you guys. If you do wish to become a member of the channel, you can join. You will be able to have access to the Excel spreadsheets that are directly linked to the FPL API. All the data automatically updated on a daily basis for you guys. You'll be able to have this data at your fingertips. You won't have to wait for my videos. You'll also be able to be involved in our WhatsApp group chat where we talk FPL all week. You have to listen to Rob talk a lot about Leeds, but it's always entertaining on there. Thanks again for all of you. Thanks if you've watched all the way through to the end. This has been your English Aussie, and have a fantastic week, everybody.